So this is a video that is intended to help explain a somewhat complicated looking spreadsheet that contains formulas regarding a lump sum post-retirement incentive for early retirement. So in this model you can see there are teachers A, B, and C who are set to retire at the end of 2017-18. Those teachers in this model are not considered because they are already set to retire at the end of the school year. So this instead is a post-retirement benefit for early retirement for those that are in the retirement pipeline. So teachers D, E, and F are set to retire at the end of 2018-19. So because of that, and then teachers G through J are set to retire the following school year based on their retirement pipeline when they put their letters in. So because of that, teachers D through J are potentially eligible for what could be considered an early retirement if they would choose to retire at the end of 2018. If they choose to do that, they're foregoing, for example, an increase in that next year's pay. So what happens to the district, there's a benefit to the district and a benefit to the employee, but it's one that both would need to consider. So for example, in this, with teacher D is set to retire at the end of 2018-19. He or she is making $67,000 this current school year and would be set based on the increase that's articulated in the collective bargaining agreement, and when the teacher put in for retirement, would be set to retire, have a salary next school year of $69,000. So this model, what it does is it is an incentive for that teacher to actually retire in the end of 2018. So if so, the difference would be, so if the teacher would elect to, the difference between this salary and the replacement salary, right here. So the difference between that teacher's salary and the person that would replace that salary at a base level, beginning level teacher salary, the difference to the district would be a savings of approximately $31,000. And so the calculation in this model would be that the teacher, should he or she choose to go early and take this incentive, that then a post-retirement check for $30,000 would be given to that teacher. Here's how I got to the $30,000. So a per service year of credit is offered, and the calculation can change for the district depending on each year, depending on who's eligible. So here's how this works. So this teacher, based on the teachers that are eligible to retire, this teacher has, let's say, 19 years of service. If the calculation is that there is $1,600 per year of service credit to the district, then this teacher, for example, would receive a post-retirement benefit, a lump sum after retirement. So it's paid after that, at the beginning of fiscal year 19. It's paid after July 1 because it's a post-retirement benefit. It does not add to creditable earnings, though, for the retirement calculations, for pension calculations. So the teacher would need to weigh, is this something that I think is a benefit enough to go ahead and take that in lieu of working another year? And so this post-retirement benefit is, for this teacher, is $30,000, like I mentioned. Then each teacher, again, the same calculation for each of them. If there's 1 year left in the pipeline, then it's calculated at $1,600. For those that are down here, that are calculated at an additional year in the pipeline, there's this formula. In this formula, for example, I put $1,800 for them. Now, here's how we back into that number, is that the retirement incentive needs to be lucrative enough that the teacher wants to consider it, but not so much that there's not at least a break-even for the district for any of the teachers that might receive it or might take that option. So for this, we were able to, based on those that are eligible potentially, and might consider it, the district, I was able to bump up enough to make it $1,600 with the district still breaking even. So let's say that we had considered something more like $2,000, for example, and you can see that that calculation then means that the district does not break even, and if that's the one and only teacher that elects to do so, then the district actually loses. So in this scenario, you kind of have to work with the numbers in order to determine what's the break-even point at least, and where the district would at least break even that first year, because then any subsequent years there would be some savings as well. But because these teachers are, in turn, basically what's happening is they're giving up that next year of salary and increases, they would probably need to talk to a financial advisor to determine whether or not that's something they're interested in. Obviously they're looking at the 4 highest years of salary, and so some may say it's not something that I'm willing to consider because of the impact on their pension calculation. But some may say, I'd really like to take that $30,000, and for example, I've seen in other districts where a teacher might have a need to retire early, or a desire to retire early to take care of ailing parents, or to take care of maybe some grandchildren. I knew a teacher that took the retirement lump sum bonus because she said she and her husband would have always wanted to go on a sailing trip, and they were going to take that dollar amount and use it to have their dream vacation that they've always wanted to have. So she actually retired early and said, earlier than she had planned, and took that dollar amount. And then there was a savings to the district. So then if you look at, why more for those that are 2 years out, those that are 2 years out are giving up 2 years of increases. But the benefit to the teacher then is that, I'm perhaps retiring earlier than I had planned, and then can go be gainfully employed someplace else, or, put those dollars into savings, and be able to then, use some interest on it, some perhaps, or like I said, some say, that gives me an opportunity to go sub, or get another position in another field, or in another perhaps state. And so, it really is an individual consideration whether or not a teacher wants to take that option. The other thing that this spreadsheet, this example, doesn't show is their date of birth. And so what each of these teachers would need to, number one, we would need to analyze if they're eligible to retire without any kind of penalty in the retirement benefit. But that would be something that they would be talking to TRS to determine whether or not they're eligible to retire, and if they perhaps have a decrease in their benefits, if that's something that they are still interested in doing. We as a district only know what their years of service credit are for our district. We don't know what years of service credit they may have to other TRS positions, other districts. Only the TRS does not share that with the district. We would have to get that from the employee. So to determine whether or not this is something that is really feasible for these teachers, we would need to know more about their age and how much service credit they have in addition to what the district has on record for them. So like I mentioned, in this example, you can see the savings to the district. It's a pretty easy calculation. It's just, what is the 18-19 salary that the person was entitled to, or the district was going to pay when, for their year before they have already set to retire. This is the year that they put in their letter for. And then the difference between the salary, and then take away, the formula is just minus this amount. It shows then the FY19 savings, because again, this retirement incentive is paid out in fiscal year 19 or after July 1st. So in these, the 3 teachers that are set to retire in 2020, the calculation is a little bit different because, like I said, they're foregoing potentially 2 years of salaries and retiring 2 years prior to their intended date. So for that calculation, again, we're looking at what is the replacement salary, when they're leaving, and then what is the replacement salary for that next fiscal year compared to this number that they were going to receive. And then you can see the 2020, so not only do those 3 teachers, or those 4 teachers in this example have a savings in FY19, there is a savings to the district, but there's also a savings to the district in FY20. So for that calculation, we do not have to subtract out the post-retirement benefit check that that teacher is receiving, because they will receive that at the end of FY19. They only get one check. It's at the end of FY19. At the end of sometime in July of 2018, after their retirement is calculated and their creditable earnings. And so there wouldn't be another check that's paid in FY20 for that person. They would have received their check here. That's why it's important to have a little bit higher number for the people who are 2 years out, if they're eligible to go at that point, because they're foregoing 2 years of potential increases that they had planned on. So again, sometimes it's something that they are interested in because they have plans for, if I can retire a little bit earlier than I had intended, maybe I could maybe I could go be gainfully employed someplace else and save this amount, or use it for a great trip, or use it to take care of family members, whatever that case might be. And so that's kind of what these are. TRS does have a calculation of if you're retiring, if you're going to reach age 55 between July 1 and December 1, they consider you to have reached age 55 at that school year previously. So they kind of give you a little bit of grace period if you're going to turn 55 before December 31st. So the savings to the district, clearly, if all of these teachers would take, again, the teachers A, B, and C are not eligible because they're already set to retire, but teachers D through J, if all of them would take this, the district would be paying out $259,000 in post-retirement benefits checks to them, to each of them. However, there's still a savings of $142,000 for that next fiscal year for FY19. Then an additional savings to the district for FY20. I did not include a savings here because those folks had already planned to retire at the end of FY19, so it wouldn't be fair to calculate their salaries in here because they're already retiring prior to that. So I just included those numbers for the FY20 folks, that had set to retire at the end of FY20, but they are retiring potentially earlier. So what happens next is that while we can, calculate this out, and like I said, they're pretty easy formulas to follow, but what happens next is that each teacher would be given their scenario, and they would be given an opportunity to consider whether or not that's something that they feel would be, they'd be interested in. So usually what happens then is an MOU is the MOU that's agreed upon between the union and the Board of Education would simply contain, it wouldn't contain names or specific numbers. It would just contain the, anyone who is eligible to retire after, that is age such and such or above, at, such and such a number of years of service to the district. So it would kind of basically include a formula, and it would contain this information. And then each person would know what their calculations were, but the MOU itself, the Memorandum of Understanding, would simply state what the formula is, and those that are eligible to retire without names, just, for example, how many years of service do they have to be eligible for the MOU. So that would be something that then you would also put a timeline on. For example, if, we say it's agreed upon by the board and the union March 1st, and then, maybe they have until April 15th or something like that to say, yes, I am interested in it, and go ahead and put in a letter that says they'd like to take advantage of that post-retirement benefit and receive that check. Again, typically it's something that unions are really supportive of because it's an individual, they get to make a choice. No one's being forced to take it, it's just an individual choice. Clearly they're, some might say, well, they already got a post-retirement benefit. Why are they getting another benefit? They're actually taking this dollar amount in lieu of that retirement bump that is in the contract, because there are percent increases over the last final 3 years in the contract that they are allowed. That's a retirement incentive that we have already agreed to with the union, and they're taking this lump sum check perhaps in lieu of that increase from this year to this year, or from this year to this year. So they're it's not that they're getting something in addition to, they're actually taking it in lieu of the increase that was bargained from one of the final 3 years of retirement. Again, that's part of the reason that these 3